think the discussion we had on that earlier discussion about the manufacturing,
Yeah.
in EBITDA cell, probably if they were going to merge it, right? Because they'd have to manage it.
Well, I think if you're looking at something that could be tucked into an existing organization, one of the other things you're going to want to look at is synergistic savings. So if you had somebody who was going to be able to take over the company and they had extra capacity in their facility, you know, do they have the right equipment, though, would be the question. So do they need to keep this facility and keep the overhead, the fixed expenses, or could they relocate the business into an existing facility that they already own and thereby save whatever the mortgage or rent is, whatever the additional utilities and things are in that particular space? So there are ways, even if you have a good business that's breaking even, there are still ways to build up value in it for a synergistic buyer, if you have the ability to eliminate some of those fixed costs. And you just show those differently. You say, well, if you can eliminate, a synergistic buyer may be able to save these costs, which would generate X amount of additional profit for them. Diane, did you get your microphone working?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. May I ask you a question about when we send out an NDA to the buyer, do you always require the buyer profile or you don't require the buyer profile?
I actually don't. So for Main Street, yeah, a lot of times I do, but for middle market, I don't. Because middle market, you're dealing with a lot of private equity firms and all that. They're just not going to fill it out. They're just not, they don't want to be bothered. But for Main Street, yeah, a lot of times, because I want to know if they're a first-time buyer, if they've owned a business before, what their background and experience is. So then a lot of times I will go ahead and send a buyer profile and ask them to complete it. Or the other alternative to that, Diane, is I may just have a phone conversation with them and go through the questions that are on the list, which is faster, and just ask them, hey, what's your background and experience? And I might make a couple notes on it, or I might just make notes in the CRM, the note field.
Which CRM system do you recommend to use?
I just started using Pipedrive and I really like it. So I'm a fan. Pipedrive is the best CRM I've ever used. I know there's a lot of them out there and I haven't used all of them. But of the CRMs I have used, Pipedrive, it's fast. It's super easy to modify things. I tag a lot of my contacts with tags for basically everything. Because I get a lot of emails from equity firms and search funds and all these kind of people that send me an email and say, hey, here's my acquisition criteria. I'm looking for these 3 industries. I want a software or software as a service, IT services, this, that. And I want EBITDA greater than $500,000 for our add-ons and greater than 3 million for a platform company and blah, blah, blah. Right. And so, I have tags for most of those little things and I'll add them in as a contact. And then in the tags, I know they want software, IT services, EBITDA greater than 3 million. And so now I can create a filter and when I have an IT company, I can pull up a filter, just says, give me every buyer. I also tag them as being a buyer, every buyer interested in software services or IT services. And it'll pull up a list for me and then I can send a group email.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tanya, this is a question. Actually, I've got two
Michael.
questions. Number one, I think that'd be awesome if you could even sometime do a webinar on how to set up a CRM for business brokerage. I mean, that's just a side note. If there was a business that was owner operated and then was going to go to a non, a business, an owner who's not there,
Yeah.
would you add in a salary?
Well, it depends. It depends on the size of the business, right? So if the size of the business is a smaller business, maybe under $2 million in value, then I would expect that it would be, again, you want to normalize to owner operated because most of those businesses are. So I wouldn't really add in, I'd add back the one owner's compensation. I wouldn't subtract out anything for a manager, because if a company, a competitor, or somebody else was going to buy them and kind of tuck them in, they already have a management team in place.
All right.
So they're not going to need to hire another manager to take care of that.
Okay. The second question I have is, I'm listing an e-commerce financial blog website. How are e-commerce businesses different than regular brick and mortar businesses, other than there's really no expenses? I mean, these guys are just coming up with ideas, putting them into websites, making them profitable for a couple of years, and then selling them.
Yeah.
There's no overhead, there's no amortization, there's no loan, there's nothing like that. So they're really easy to do evaluation, unless I'm totally missing something.
No, I mean, I think e-commerce sites are pretty easy. They obviously they do have hosting fees and they have other fees that are involved in the site. The biggest question with the e-commerce sites is on the recurring revenue, or on the revenue, is like, how long is it going to be sustainable? The other thing is, how much new content are they creating on a regular basis? Because as we know, the search engines are always looking for new content. And so if somebody buys this e-commerce site and does not have the time, energy, or effort to come up with new content for it, then it's going to fall in the search, the search engine. So it's going to decline, and then you basically, if you can't be found, then whoever buys it'll be a very poor investment for them, because they're not in a position to manage it. So I would say, with e-commerce, you're always looking for how long has it been around, and what do the numbers look like? Because you've got to look at the analytics for it, and is it still growing? Where does it fall in the search engines? Who is generating content for it, and how much time do they spend generating content for it? And does the buyer have the ability to continue generating content? So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'm the only one that didn't know about the 2 time frames for the tax returns for the S corps.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can go over that. And do the S corps, do they use the same P&Ls as everyone else? Because I've been asking this seller for 2 weeks now, and she's sending me everything but P&Ls.
Okay. So what Terrence is talking about is the fact that some corporations, primarily C corporations, may be operating on a fiscal year instead of a calendar year. So every once in a while, you're going to come across a business where maybe their year goes from April 1st to March 30th instead of from January 1 to December 31st. We are always looking in, when we're doing our SDE worksheets and all of that, we're looking at the end of the calendar year mostly. So right now we're in March 23. So if we're doing a 3-year SDE worksheet, we're going to be looking at 20, 21, and 22. And we're assuming that's December 31st, 2021, 22. So, when you are looking at a C corporation though, and if they have a fiscal year that goes April 1st to March 30th, the tax return is based on the beginning of the year. So your 2022 tax return, at this point, they haven't even finished their 2022 fiscal year yet, because they were April 1, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, and we're not there yet, right? So it can get a little bit confusing sometimes. And so anytime you're dealing with a non-calendar year, you just be super careful, because otherwise your numbers are going to be in the wrong place, and you're going to be comparing, you know, it's just super easy. I mean, even to this day, I've been doing this 15, 16, 18 years, whatever it is, but I still have to really stop when I'm dealing with C corporations that are on fiscal years and really check to make sure that the tax return that I'm using that says, you know, 2020, that I'm putting in my SDE column that says 2021, because my SDE worksheet is based on the fiscal year end, and the tax return is based on the fiscal year beginning. So it can get a little confusing. So Terrence, thank you for bringing that up. What was the other part of that?
Do they have standard P&Ls? Because I've been asking her for P&Ls.
Some companies don't have P&Ls, period. I mean, at the end of the day, you can ask her, does she use QuickBooks or does she use whatever? And yes, QuickBooks and most of your accounting software will generate P&Ls for fiscal years. That's part of what they set up when they initially set up their chart of accounts and all of that. It asks them, what is your fiscal year? So for most people, it's January 1 to December 31st. But yeah, if she's not being able to provide you with P&Ls, then I would just ask her, what accounting software are you using, if any? Because I can tell you, I talked to somebody last week and they were telling me they don't even use any accounting software. Like everything is written still on the ledger sheets, the old accounting ledger books. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, trying to sell a business like that is going to be quite a challenge, because, you know, I mean, even trying to generate any kind of report from that, it's almost impossible. So I think, you know, I'm going to have a conversation with them and see if I can talk them into having the last 3 years of ledgers, you know, hiring a bookkeeper or somebody to data enter all of that into, you know, even there's an accounting software online called Wave that's free. It's free until you start using the payroll service. And then once you start using payroll, then it costs. But Wave, they were purchased by H&R Block. Pretty good accounting system. So super simple to use. You can connect it to all your bank accounts and credit cards, and it automatically imports all your transactions. And all you have to do, it also has AI built into it. So once you categorize something, a certain expense, if you have recurring expenses to your credit cards, once you categorize it once or twice, it'll retain that information. And then the next time it imports it, it'll put it in the right category for you. And all you have to do is look at your transactions and just, you know, I do it on a weekly basis. I go through and just review, and you just check it off that it's reviewed. And, you know, in very short period, 10 minutes every week or whatever, I can stay on top of all the accounting, all my expenses, everything. And then when you want to generate a P&L, you just press, you know, you go to reports, P&L, boom, it's there. Reports, balance sheet, boom, it's there. So yeah, so I highly, you know, if you need a good accounting system and don't want to pay for QuickBooks, then I highly recommend Wave, because free is good, right? I mean, the more tools we can have at our disposal, better off we are.